Good morning, Stephen, and how are you?
Morning, Denise. Lovely hair. Well, what is lovely hair? Um, I think I'm going to try that with my head.
Stephen, how are you?
I am great as always. I am full of life. I am full of enthusiastic. I am hoping for the best every single day. That's how I look at it.
Lovely. Hoping for the best in this country is a typical way, and it's a way that people of our generation really feel. But it's difficult because, for example, we have a state of emergency. What is your view of this state of emergency?
Well, I mean, my first state of emergency was in 1970. Uh, I, I can't remember how old I was. I wasn't a child, but in 1970, it suddenly dawned on me. Hold on a second. I didn't realize that governments had that kind of power to be able to do that. And then, of course, we've had subsequent states of emergency. In 1990. And now we have it, we're having rollover states of emergency now. Okay. And all of them had to do with some sort of um, um, armed and criminal activity. Okay. And when I look at what we're doing now with the rollover states of emergency, how are we going to end these rollovers? What is going to trigger? Sorry, maybe that's wrong terminology. What is the one thing that the government is going to say? Okay, fine. This has happened. Therefore, we no longer need a state of emergency. There's been zero new legislation that has come into the parliament. As far as I know, based on all the reports, the police have not adopted any new strategies for dealing with it. And therefore, how you expect this new state of emergency that is coming? What are the results does the government expect with this new one coming in? Because we should know what the results are. The intended results. You can't come every 3 months and say, well, we're behind in what we're doing, therefore we need another 3 months. How long is it going to take you? How long will it take this administration to determine how much time do they need if you have not changed one single piece of legislation that is going to create that space for you? Okay, so I always make reference to my to the Motor Vehicle Act, okay, Motor Vehicle Authority Act of 2015 that was brought to the Parliament, and that provided, for instance, the reason it had to have a parliamentary, a constitutional majority, because it took away people's rights of ownership of a vehicle, etc. The, the fact that you up to now you can go into a grocery practically to buy a license plate for your car. So you could be driving around, bandits could be driving around with three different license plates if they're going to do three different jobs, okay, in their car. And there is no law that says that you can't have that. Why? Because you can go anywhere and buy a license plate. Okay? No, you don't need any ID, you don't need anything. Just pay for it and you're gone. All right? So there are systems in place, for instance, where when you purchase a license plate from a government licensed dealer, okay, that is a smart license plate that you're buying. Okay, that smart license plate, once it goes into the system and is activated, goes into the system. You outfit your police cars with smart checkers, okay, senders, monitors, and what have you. A police car driving down the road, if it starts to signal that there's a vehicle in front of you or a vehicle, this number plate, okay, that is of interest because of some previous occasion, it will flag the vehicle and the police can then pull that car over and stop it and do whatever they have to do. Okay, so it is not a case of us at the time of us trying to penalize drivers and what have you. But again, and I keep saying, every firearm, every kilo of illegal drugs, every home invasion, there's a vehicle involved. How are you policing the 700 or 800,000 vehicles that are licensed for our roads? How are you policing that? if you can start making sense out of it, and you can start containing the vehicles that are of interest by using technology, then why are we not doing that? I don't hear a peep from the officialdom as to during this new state of emergency, this is what we intend doing. We're going to bring back the legislation. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Where that is going to give the police that much more power to be able to contain, okay, to contain the banditry. So when a bandit leaves Beach and they decide to come to Chaguanas to do a robbery or whatever it is, how are the police checking that vehicle? There's no way. There's no ever-loving way. You get on that highway, nobody can find you. Okay? And that is what I mean when I say, yes, I support the state of emergency, but I support the state of emergency only with the caveat that the government brings forward legislation, a different way of doing the same thing, okay, where they're going to have the results. And I don't read that. I don't see that anywhere. And therefore, we're going to go for the next 3 months, and the same discussion is going to be had by the unions at the end of the 3 months. All they want to do is to restrict our protest action. That's all they're trying to do. That is an easy way to restrict the protest action.
So, Stephen, you're saying that this state of emergency is not working. And this is the fifth one, I think, that we've had. And what would you like to see as an outcome to make this state of emergency successful?
Well, I mean, you have to, the authorities, which are going to be mainly the police in this case, and the other services, Coast Guard and what have you, you know, you cannot wake up in the morning and do the exact same thing you've been doing for the last 10 years. What is going to be different? How are you going to make it different? So it is obvious that the authorities, by virtue of changing up your work pattern, okay, or how you do certain things, changing that by legislation. Okay, they say they're buying the body cams or what have you. Okay, that's fine. That is one step ahead that we're going to have. But what else? You have a National Security Committee that meets every single week, as far as I know. Okay, I'm not sure who, and I don't want to say anything about who attends those meetings, but typically it would be the Prime Minister, Minister of National Security, the Attorney General, Legal Affairs. I mean, there are a couple of people obviously directly connected. So, for instance, Tourism, Minister of Tourism will not be there, all right? But there are ministries that have to be there, and also the heads of all these various security services that we have, okay? What is the outcome of those meetings? In other words, if we meet today, are we setting a goal to say, by next week, this is what has to happen? This is how we're changing up the program. I can't see, based on the reporting, okay, that there's any difference. You still have the home invasions. You still have people being shot at randomly. You have the drug business alive and well. I could tell you it's alive and well because I see it every single day on my commute. Okay, you have all of these things happening, and where is the new way of doing things? When last did we read that the Coast Guard held people at sea on our maritime boundary with Venezuela? When last we read that the Coast Guard intercepted vessels? I can't remember. I don't think that has been done for years. Imagine we had a fleet, I believe, of 3 or 4 helicopters for national security. All of a sudden, there's a regime change in 2015. All of a sudden, we don't need no helicopters. What absolute madness is this? So how are you going to deal these drug guys? These are not little boys kicking ball in the street. Huh? This is a major, major business. This is a corporation. Okay? These guys are coming up with every which way to do it. Okay? And here it is that we sitting down hoping that we could spot them coming in by boat. You know, and so again, where is the new plan for dealing with this state of emergency to get the results that you want? I don't see any, I haven't heard, I don't know of anything that is going on behind the scenes that is going to create that new thrust in dealing with it, with our crime.
Yeah. And Stephen, we've had this state of emergency. This is the fifth time. This is a continuation of the previous government. And my position is that we have not had any fixes at all. And the big issue is that you can't have a quick fix because things you can't just make a decision and it changes. You have to rebuild trust between the police and the communities. So a state of emergency is not going to do that. You have to control the flow of illegal guns. The state of emergency is not going to do that. You have to demand accountability from our leaders every day, not just during a crisis. And I am not seeing accountability from our leaders. So, Stephen, for me, that state of emergency is not successful. And the continuation or the expansion of it for another 3 months to me is unfortunate because we don't really know what they plan to do and how they plan to achieve those objectives. So, Stephen, here's something that I'd like us to do. I'd like us to move on from the state of emergency. And another concern I have in our country is how do we deal with garbage? Because I can see garbage all over the place. What is your view of that?
When I drive around the savannah, and I know you are a savannah supporter, all right, and I look under the bed.
I'm a runner around the savannah, not just a supporter.
I apologize. When I drive around somewhere like the Queen's Park Savannah, and I see people just discarding, takeout boxes of food, and I wonder who was the person that sat there and actually did that. Is it a vagrant? I don't think vagrants go into these fast food places to buy food. Okay, is it? I don't know who. I would love to see and meet the people who are responsible for just discarding their waste just like that. That's somebody else's problem. Somebody else go pick it up. I don't care if it ugly up the savannah. That is not my problem. Okay, as long as they don't come in my car and ugly up my car, you know. And where does that attitude come from? I thought people in Trinidad had, and forget solid waste and forget all of that. I thought people had pride. You used to drive in the country long time and you see everybody's yard looking pristine. It might not be a yard of outside of a mansion. It's a simple little house, okay? But pristine. The yard is kept clean. Over by Christmas time, you see people painting their petrol pan red and they have their palms in it and what have you. And then all of a sudden, nastiness. All of a sudden, the entire country. I went up to the back of a repo a couple of weeks ago, and imagine in the back of a repo, you're seeing food boxes discarded right there. I mean, no, man, we have to be better than that. I drove on my commute this morning. Not a single place, whether it was a residence or whether it was a business place, had a covered garbage receptacle. Everything was just piled on top of each other because Wednesday is a garbage pickup. Bags of garbage just piled on top of each other. So what does that do? You put that out last night, dogs, cats, vagrants, whatever it is. You go to a small country like Barbados, and you see what the Bajans have done. They have demanded every single person for every single residence and business has a covered garbage can. Okay? A big covered plastic garbage can. And you know how they pay for it? They added, I don't know, $1, $5, or whatever it is, onto your water bill or onto your electricity bill. Okay? So those people who said, where are you getting $400 to buy a garbage can from? Okay, I don't have $400. I said, no problem, you know how to buy it. You'll pay for it over time by adding a couple of dollars onto your utility bill. Okay? And Barbados, for the most part, is clean. And why is it that Barbados could be clean? Tobago, I don't know how often people go to Tobago just to go and take a drive and head up the coast or what have you. But again, I was up there at the top of up in Charlottesville the other day, and I did not see one garbage pile, not one. And that is an hour and a half's drive. Okay, I drive out of my yard, bam, garbage in the road. Come on, people. No, something has to be done, Denise. I do not know if we have to bring back Charlie. I do not know if we have to re-educate our children from that level, from primary school level, because the adults don't seem to understand that what they're doing is wrong. It's plain and simple. It's wrong.
Stephen, one of the issues is that there are no consequences for if you do something that is just inappropriate. So, for example, you can just throw some bottles out of your car and there's no consequence for that. The police won't stop you and charge you for throwing out the bottles. There are no consequences for throwing out plastic. As a matter of fact, one of the things that my observation is that every other country I've been to, you have to put your plastics in one bottle in one container. You have to put your bottles in another container, and the rest you can put in another container. And what
Continue.
often happens is that on particular days, like on a Monday, they will be picking up plastics. On a Tuesday, they'll be picking up bottles. On a Thursday or Friday, they'll be picking up other things. In Trinidad, we don't have that. We still can put everything in the garbage. And when the garbage truck comes, they come and they take everything. And once we continue without having some rules, some systems, then things are not going to change. The way our people behave is because there are no consequences. So for me, there's a need for us to introduce some consequences.
Well, I'll speak for myself. Huh? Our household is small. All right, it's just two of us there. We recycle glass. They have a glass man that passes around every couple of weeks and picks up it's like a feed bag, and you put all your bottles inside of that. Just put them in hold, you don't have to crush them or anything like that. So they come and they pick up their glass and up they go to Carib Glass Works to have it recycled. Okay? Plastics, that's another trade that we have with all our plastics going on, and there's a receptacle, I don't know where it is dropped, but anyway, it's dropped. I take the paper because there's a paper recycler in where not too far from where I work. So I take the paper, and then there's the garbage, the kitchen waste and what have you, that goes with the regular delivery, the regular pickup truck. All right. So I look at that, and Denise, there's no sweat. There's absolutely no issue in just conditioning yourself, having your children do it or whoever. But this is what we do. The same way you're going to put everything in one bag, put it in three different bags. It is a non-issue, but it is a mindset and the education of people to say that is not a right way to do it. Okay? You need to change your ways.
But Stephen, if the government or if the rulers haven't told you what the expectations are, then you have no need to do it. And that's one of the things in this country. We have
So
no self-control.
stink and dirty is really a good description for us then.
I don't like stink and dirty. I don't like that as a description
Well,
because
well,
for instance, Stephen, what you have just described is you are not stink and dirty. You do it properly. And what I am asking for is for us to move away from being stink and dirty, although that's a nice kind of thing to dance with and so on, right? But let's move away from being stink and dirty and work on how do we ensure that this beautiful island that we have is maintained.
thank you. And I think that there has to be an entire movement. Schools, primary schools have to be involved in it, of where children are now going to be telling their parents, you can't do that. Imagine that, huh?
But Stephen,
That is where we are going.
my view is that if people get charged and they have to pay, they will change their approach. So for instance, when I'm running, I see on the side of the road people throwing a plastic bottle out of a car. And
Yeah.
those things are quite unfortunate. So, Stephen, what we've had today is a conversation about the state of emergency and about the garbage. So, what is your message to our listeners?
I think the message is maybe everybody should have a flag, a national flag. I have one here and I have one at my home, okay? And those are flags that I have had for decades, okay? And I think you need to at least get a flag, go and buy a national flag and put it in your house where you can see it every single day and understand what being a proud citizen of this country is. And I think Let us start off with that, okay? But again, from primary school go up, we need to have um, we need to have all of that taught in schools because it doesn't seem with SEA and what have you, it doesn't seem that the primary schools have time to educate children as to what being a good citizen actually means. Okay, so that is what I would say. Somehow we have to get this ball rolling because I am just so fed up. One, of the crime, and two, of the condition, the physical condition of this country. And it is nobody's fault other than our fault. None of
Thank
it.
thank you ever so much, Stephen. And we invite you to join us again next Wednesday to hear what some of our views are. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.